A teenage boy shared that his grandfather had trained Navy SEALs, prompting laughter from his classmates. The coach struck him, and then a figure moved silently at the gym's rear. Before we continue, let us know your location today, and if you enjoy this tale, consider subscribing. The gym hummed with the typical energy of a Thursday evening session. Sweat coated the walls, mitts clapped in sync, and the dull thump of gloves hitting bags reverberated. In a corner, 14-year-old Ethan adjusted his shin guards. Smaller and leaner than his peers, he stayed focused, eyes tracking the trainer's motions. He didn't jest or boast, just absorbed every detail and gave his all. Coach Vance, brawny and boisterous, strode across the mats with the confidence of someone who thought he was never wrong. He signaled a brief pause as students clustered to drink water. Someone nudged Ethan, asking casually, "So, why do you pick MMA? You don't seem like the fighting kind." Ethan paused, then replied with quiet pride, "My grandpa trained Navy SEALs. He showed me the fundamentals. He's why I'm here." The room froze for a moment, then exploded in laughter. "Your grandpa?" a kid jeered. "What? Is he some action movie stuntman?" Coach Vance raised an eyebrow, smirking as he turned. "What's this? Grandpa trained SEALs, huh?" Ethan stood taller, his voice steady. "Yes, sir. He worked with them in Coronado. He doesn't talk much about it, but he—" Vance cut him off with a booming laugh, wiping sweat from his brow. "You expect us to buy that fairy tale, kid? This is a gym, not a film set." The students laughed harder, fueled by their coach's reaction. One mimicked a salute, another made mock explosion noises. Ethan stood quietly amid the mockery, staring at the mat, hands balled into fists. He didn't argue or flinch. Coach Vance stepped closer, his tone lowering with mock gravity. "You want respect here? You earn it through sweat, not by spinning tall tales." "I wasn't trying to impress anyone," Ethan said, soft but resolute. Vance's smirk vanished. "Oh, then let's teach you some humility." Before anyone could react, Vance's hand whipped out, slapping Ethan across the face. A sharp crack silenced the room, laughter dying instantly. Ethan staggered, hand touching his cheek as it reddened. He didn't cry or collapse, just stood, stunned but firm, staring downward. The handprint blossomed like a lingering mark. A few students shifted awkwardly. One muttered something inaudible. Vance, unfazed, turned away, barking, "Enough nonsense. You're here to train, not tell bedtime stories." Ethan retreated to his corner, tightening his gloves though no one called him to spar. The sting on his face lingered, but his wounded pride hurt more. No one spoke to him for the rest of the class. When the final bell sounded, students left, chatting and laughing as if nothing happened. Ethan packed silently, eyes drifting from floor to wall to door. He didn't say goodbye. Outside, the sun dipped, casting long shadows on the pavement. Ethan walked home alone. No earbuds, no music, just footsteps and the faint burn on his cheek. He took the long way. By the time he reached his gate, the sky glowed orange and purple. In the yard, an older man knelt by tomato plants, brushing dirt from their stems. He wore a faded flannel and a worn cap, his movements calm and deliberate, unrushed. The man looked up as Ethan entered. He didn't smile. Ethan nodded silently, heading for the porch. "Didn't know Jim let out early," the man said, still kneeling. Ethan stopped. It didn't. The man, Jack, stood slowly. No uniform or badge marked him, but his presence carried a quiet weight, making the air feel denser. He studied Ethan's face. The red mark stood out starkly. Still, he didn't ask. He held the screen door open. "Wash up," he said. "Dinner's nearly ready." Inside, Ethan set his bag down and moved to the sink. Jack paused by a wooden cabinet, retrieving a small, aged military challenge coin, its edges still faintly gleaming. He placed it on the table without comment. Ethan turned, eyes landing on the coin. He stared, then met his grandfather's gaze. "You remember this?" Jack asked, voice even. Ethan nodded. "You said they only gave it to instructors who finished the full SEAL combat course, back when you trained them in Coronado." Jack leaned on the table, the coin between them. "You shown it to anyone?" "No, sir." "Good." He paused. "Some folks don't need to know who you are until the moment they do." Ethan stood still, the coin catching the kitchen's soft light. Jack's eyes held his grandson's. "Finish dinner. We've got somewhere to be tomorrow." Morning light slipped through old curtains, streaking the wooden floor. Ethan sat at the kitchen table, cereal untouched, spoon idle. The red mark on his cheek had faded slightly, but its shape lingered, a bruise to his pride more than his skin. Across from him, Jack sipped coffee in silence. No words had passed since last night. None were needed. The house was quiet, save for creaking floorboards and distant traffic hum. Jack stood, placed his cup in the sink, and turned toward the hallway. "Get your shoes," he said. "We leave in 15. Ethan looked up, puzzled. "Where to?" Jack didn't reply, entering his room and closing the door softly. 15 minutes later, Ethan stood on the porch, gym bag over his shoulder, wearing yesterday's MMA shirt, its collar stretched from nervous tugging. Jack emerged in jeans, a plain button-down, and the same worn cap. No fanfare, no explanation. They climbed into the truck. The drive was silent, just tires on asphalt and the radio's low murmur. Ethan stole glances at his grandfather, searching for clues in his stoic face, but Jack's expression was unreadable. Not anger or disappointment, but something weightier, like the calm before a revelation. After 10 minutes, they pulled into the gym's small lot. Ethan hesitated, unbuckling slowly. "I don't have class today," he said. Jack nodded. "I know." Ethan waited for more, but nothing came. They stepped out. Jack moved unhurriedly, as if time bent to him. Ethan followed, unsure if he faced more shame or something else. Inside, the gym felt different from yesterday. A few students sparred in the back. Coach Vance stood near the center, arms crossed, watching two teams trade sloppy kicks. He looked up as the door chimed. "Well, look who's back," he said loudly. "Didn't get enough yesterday?" Some students glanced over. A few smirked, others kept training. Vance's eyes flicked to the older man beside Ethan. He squinted, then laughed. "Brought your lawyer? Or is this Hollywood grandpa here to spin his tales in person?" Jack didn't blink or speak. He walked to the mat's edge, hands in pockets. Ethan stood beside him, uncertain. Vance tilted his head. "Here to complain? File a report? Or just watch?" Jack's voice was calm. "Just observing. But if you're done talking, I might share a thought later." The tone wasn't loud or confrontational, but it sliced through the room. A few students stopped sparring, drawn by the tension. Vance scoffed. "Listen, old man, this is my gym. I don't need lessons from someone who got their black belt from a cereal box." Jack scanned the room, the familiar mats, the sweat-soaked air. "I've seen many gyms," he said quietly. "Some forge fighters. Others just make noise." Vance stepped closer. "Got something to say? Say it." Jack stayed still. "Not yet." He turned to Ethan. "Stretch. Warm up." Ethan blinked. "Me?" Jack nodded once. Ethan complied, trusting the man beside him, though unsure of the plan. He moved to the mat's far end, starting the stretches his grandfather had taught him. In the garage, on the porch, by the river. Muscle memory, now with deeper purpose. Vance watched, then faced Jack. "What are you trying to prove?" Jack tilted his head. "I'm not here to prove anything." "That's your game." Vance's jaw clenched. "You think you're better than me? That I don't know my craft?" Jack's voice stayed low, but his eyes sharpened. I think you struck a kid for speaking truth, then bragged about it. The room tensed. Students exchanged glances, unsure whether to step in or look away. Vance raised his hands. Fine, talk big. Step on the mat. Let's see what you've got. Jack surveyed the room. For a moment, it seemed he'd accept. Instead, he pulled a small, weathered Navy SEAL trident patch from his pocket, initials stitched faintly. He held it up, voice barely a whisper. This used to mean something. Still does. But it's not mine that matters. It's the one your student honored yesterday. Vance froze, caught off guard. Students stared at the patch, recognizing it from documentaries and books, now held by someone who wore it like skin. Jack turned to Ethan. We'll talk after you train. Finish what you started. He didn't shout or explain. For the first time in that gym, no one laughed. Afternoon sunlight filtered through dusty windows, casting shadows across the mats. Ethan sat against a wall, lacing his gloves quietly. The class's energy had shifted. Some students joked, but others kept glancing toward Jack, who stood near the entrance, still and watchful. He hadn't spoken since showing the trident patch, his presence undeniable. Coach Vance paced, voice sharper, trying to regain control. Reset. Back to basics. Pair up. Students moved sluggishly, eyes darting between Ethan, Jack, and Vance. The tension was palpable, no longer a jest. Vance pointed at Ethan. You with Darius. 5 rounds. Go. Ethan nodded, standing with precision. Darius, older and bigger, smirked, tapping gloves lazily. As they drilled, Ethan kept his guard tight, footwork sharp. He didn't need to see his grandfather to feel his presence. Jack observed everything. Not just Ethan, but Vance's off-balance stance, the students' wavering trust, the gym's cracking foundation. Vance broke the silence. You think standing there makes you superior? Jack didn't answer. I've trained champions. Built this place from nothing. Jack looked at him. You built it on fear. Vance stepped closer. You don't know me. I know enough. A young student, maybe 13, whispered loudly. Is that Jack Cooper? Heads turned, the rumor spreading. Phones emerged, disguised as message checks, but aimed at recording. No one asked outright, but all wondered. Vance laughed, forced. Jack Cooper? That guy's probably in a cabin polishing trophies. Jack stepped forward. I don't polish trophies. I build character. Or try to. Vance's face darkened. If you're him, prove it. I'm not here to prove anything to you, Jack said calmly. But if you keep disrespecting my grandson, I'll show you why you should have kept your hands off. Gasps rippled. Students stepped back. The question wasn't who Jack was, but what would happen next. Vance grinned, rolling his shoulders. Fine, old man. Let's dance. Jack removed his cap, setting it gently on a bench. He didn't stretch, just stepped onto the mat, stance relaxed but grounded, eyes locked on Vance. Vance raised his fists, bouncing. Hope your Medicare's up to date. Jack didn't flinch. Vance lunged. The next 5 seconds blurred. Jack slipped the punch, pivoted, and swept Vance's leg cleanly. Before Vance hit the mat, Jack redirected his momentum, locking his arm just enough to end it. Vance grunted, face pressed to the mat, eyes wide. Jack released him. Vance rolled over, gasping. You got lucky. Jack stepped back. No, you got arrogant. Silence gripped the room. A phone clattered, echoing loudly. Ethan watched his grandfather, shoulders lifting for the first time since yesterday. Jack faced the room. This isn't about showing off. It's about knowing when to stand or kneel, not because you're forced, but because you honor something greater. He approached Vance, who sat rubbing his wrist, humiliated. I didn't come to shame you, Jack said. But you hit my grandson and mocked his truth. That's not coaching. It's cowardice in a coach's uniform. Vance said nothing. Jack eyed the students who'd laughed yesterday. Want to be fighters? Start by protecting those who can't yet. The door creaked. A woman with a press badge peeked in, camera crew behind. A student had tipped them off. Jack didn't look. He dusted his cap and walked to Ethan. Come on, he said softly. We're not done. Media vans swarmed the lot like sharks. Reporters spilled out, cameras ready, voices practicing intros. As Jack and Ethan exited, a crowd gathered, gym students, nearby shopkeepers. A 30-second clip of Jack pinning Vance had hit 1,000 shares, captioned, "Old man schools MMA coach for hitting grandson." Jack ignored the cameras, walking as if the world's gaze never fazed him. Ethan followed, unsure whether to leave or return. Jack re-entered the gym. Inside, students stood stunned. Vance lingered near the center, nursing his wrist, ignoring the crowd outside. A teen whispered, "It's really him." Another muttered, "He barely touched coach." The news crew slipped in, cameras rolling. A reporter approached. "Mr. Cooper, a statement? Did this coach assault your grandson?" Jack glanced at her mic. "This isn't about me. It's about what happens when power's mistaken for permission." He walked to the front desk, picking up a framed certificate. Certified Master Instructor, International Combat Federation. He turned it over, frowning. "You forged this yourself, or did someone help?" Vance bristled. "That's real. I earned it." Jack nodded. "Then you won't mind me verifying with the Federation." Vance didn't respond. A girl with tied-back hair raised her hand. "He said we had to pay extra if we didn't recruit new students. Said it was part of training." Another added, "I paid $500 last month to keep my spot." Jack turned to Ethan. "Same for you." Ethan nodded. "They said I'd be suspended if I didn't bring someone by week's end." Jack exhaled. "This isn't just a slap. It's theft disguised as a gym." He faced the reporter. "Your headline: A dishonorable man built a business preying on kids seeking discipline, using fear to silence them." Whispers erupted. The camera zoomed. Vance paled. "You think you can ruin what I built?" Jack's voice stayed level. "You ruined it when you hit a child for speaking truth." Vance stepped forward, chest puffed. "You're a washed-up has-been. You haven't fought in years." Jack stared. "And you couldn't last 30 seconds. Laughter broke, awkward but real. Vance clenched his fists. "Rematch. Now." Full contact. Jack shook his head. "Nothing left to prove. But if you want attention, fight the truth. It's waiting outside." Cameras panned. Students eyed Vance, not with fear, but doubt. A boy whispered, "He lied about everything, didn't he?" Another stepped forward. "We thought he taught us to fight. He was just hiding his own fear." Jack didn't gloat. He walked to the whiteboard listing classes, erased Coach Vance, and wrote, "Earn honor." He faced the class. "I don't run this place or plan to. But what's next is your choice. Follow fear or learn real strength." He nodded to Ethan. "Let's go." Outside, the sun hit Ethan's face. He squinted, glancing back at the gym. Students gathered, not around Vance but each other, talking, questioning, unraveling months of blind trust. Cameras chased again. The reporter caught up. "Mr. Cooper, is this a publicity stunt?" Jack looked at her. "I don't do stunts. I protect my family." He opened the truck door for Ethan. A student ran up, holding the trident patch. "You dropped this." Jack took it, then placed it in Ethan's hand. "It's not mine anymore." The truck pulled away, leaving a gym of whispers, a crowd of questions, and a coach's crumbling empire. The video spread rapidly, hitting 10,000 views by nightfall. News stations looped it. Social media buzzed with clips of Jack's takedown, his words, and the coin handoff. Jack didn't check his phone or read comments. He sat on the porch with tea, watching dusk settle, Ethan beside him, patch in hand. Inside the gym, fallout began. Parents called, Students posted payment screenshots and Vance's private messages, recruitment pressure, humiliation videos. By morning, a news van parked outside the locked gym, windows dark. That afternoon, Jack returned, not to gloat, just to watch. Across the street, he saw teens gather at the entrance, some with bags, others with questions. They didn't want to quit, they just didn't know what to do. The girl who'd spoken up approached. "We won't keep training," she said. "But we don't want lies anymore." Jack met her gaze. "Don't follow anyone who needs your fear to feel strong." She nodded. "Will you teach us?" He hesitated. "I'm not here to start a gym. That's not my purpose." Another voice said, "We don't need a gym. We need truth." A circle of students had joined, Ethan among them. Jack stayed silent, contemplating. That night, at the kitchen table, the trident coin lay between them. Ethan turned it over. "Did you ever face people like Vance?" "More than I can count," Jack said. "People who confuse fear with discipline, noise with leadership, strength with violence." "What did you do?" Jack met his eyes. "Stood when it mattered. Spoke when no one else would." The phone rang. Jack waved it off. "If it's important, it'll find us." Next day, a young reporter arrived alone with a notepad. They spoke on the porch. "I've interviewed fighters, generals," she said. "You're different." "I'm not a fighter," Jack replied. "I'm a witness. I've seen silence turn to complicity. Why act now?" He pointed to Ethan practicing footwork in the yard with two kids. "Someone needed me." She watched, then stood. "Thank you." He nodded. "Don't tell my story. Tell theirs." That evening, Ethan sat on the porch, coin on his knee. "Will they come back?" "They already have," Jack said. More kids arrived. Bikes, parents trailing, carrying gloves, water, hope. They gathered quietly, waiting not for shouts but for guidance. Jack stood, muttering, "We'll need mats." Ethan grinned. "Got some in the garage." Jack nodded. "Good. You lead warm-up." Ethan blinked. "Me?" "You took the hit, kept your voice, stepped back in. That's a leader." Ethan walked to the group, hesitant but proud. Jack stayed back, arms crossed. He didn't need a title or spotlight, just to ensure the next generation knew real strength. In that quiet yard, without walls or logos, the real gym began. By week's end, Jack's backyard crowd doubled. Parents watched, awed, as kids trained barefoot on grass. No mirrors, no shouts, just focus and respect. Ethan led warm-ups, voice steady, no longer the boy in the corner. The coin stayed in his pocket. The old gym unraveled. A temporary closure sign hung, but no one believed it. Students shared stories, some old, some recent. Media ran headlines. MMA coach faces fraud, abuse claims. Vance went silent. A boy, Jamal, posted a video. "I thought yelling made me strong," he said. "Then I saw Mr. Cooper stand up. That's real strength." The video went viral, not for the takedown, but the rebuilding. Students reposted, sharing payment logs, clips of Vance's rants. The noise was theirs now. In Jack's garage, Ethan unrolled an old mat, tapping it twice before stepping on sacred ground. The girl who'd asked Jack to teach approached with a folder. "We got signatures," she said. "We want to make this real. Maybe rent a space." Jack looked at the kids laughing, cleaning up cones. "Know why this works?" She shrugged. "You?" He shook his head. "No one's trying to be loudest. Everyone's here for the right reason." She smiled. "So yes or no?" He took the folder. "Maybe." An email came from the Martial Arts Federation's ethics investigator, prompted by videos and the fake certificate. Jack replied, "You know where to find the truth." Days later, the Federation revoked Vance's license, issued an apology, and promised gym audits. Ethan watched younger kids drill in the yard, helping each other up, no mockery. He turned to Jack. You proud? Jack nodded. Pride's not from winning. It's from helping others stand taller. Ethan offered the coin. You sure you don't want it? Jack shook his head. It's for whoever carries the weight. That's you. A parent approached, packing chairs. My son never looked anyone in the eye before. Now he shakes hands. That started here. Jack nodded, stacking chairs. He hadn't meant to start a movement, but one had begun. No banners, just an old mat, a coin, and showing up daily. Weeks later, the grass wore thin from footsteps. Training found its rhythm. Sunrise warm-ups, noon drills, afternoon sparring. No bells, no forms, just commitment. Ethan set up early one morning, arranging gloves neatly. Jack watched, a faint smile tugging his lips. After the final stretch, the group gathered under an oak. Jack held up the trident coin. I carried this to remind me who I had to be, even unwatched. He paused. Then I gave it to someone who needed it, not because he was ready, but because he was willing. He handed it to Ethan, not with fanfare, but certainty. You earned it, not for the gym, but for what you chose after. You didn't let anger define you. Ethan took it, fingers closing around it. The group clapped softly, no cheers, just respect. That night, on the back steps, Ethan watched the hills fade, coin in hand, a glove left on the mat. Ever think about a real gym? He asked. Jack shook his head. This is real. Ethan grinned. With a roof? Jack sipped his cup. Roofs are overrated. Silence settled. I didn't think I could come back from that slap, Ethan said. Jack nodded. You were focused on the slap, not the step after. Ethan turned the coin. What now? Jack gazed at the stars. Carry it until someone else needs it more. No speech, no final fight, just a boy, a coin, and a man who taught him to stand. The past hadn't vanished. It had become something stronger, not through fists or revenge, but truth and legacy.